Hey everybody. So I want to start this video off by apologizing. Um, I talked to a lot of people, and it wasn't until recently when I started looking up uh, how to explain how multidimensional uh, data sets and multidimensional querying and OLAP kind of how it works and how people think about data um, differently because I really never thought about sitting down and explaining on that because to be honest with you it kind of all came naturally to me. I never really thought about how to set up data. I never really thought about how to uh, make data appear in a certain way. It just kind of models in my head automatically. Um, while when I watched this guy's video and how he would, uh, explain multidimensional, uh, data to people, and multidimensional analytics is really what we're focused here on. Um, he explained it, but explained it from a perspective on how another individual that's not an analyst would perceive the data, and I didn't ever really think of that, if you want to say that. I think of a lot of things, and a lot of things run through my mind while I'm analyzing data. Obviously, 9 times out of 10, you can't explain it; it just happens. And one of the things is I assume, if you want to call it that way, or I think that whoever I'm talking to, already is thinking about the data in that manner, thinking about the data model in that way. Their mind is basically keeping up with mine, and we're talking on the same wavelengths. Because I never thought that the way I looked at data, well, pretty much my whole life, honestly, um, was any different than how someone else looked at it. Which I came to find out once I watched this, that I just look at data differently, naturally, than other people. And so I want to apologize straight up if I've ever gotten any kind of confrontation or made you feel, if you communicate with me personally and professionally, and I made you feel that I'm above you, or that I'm a know-it-all because of that. It wasn't meant in that manner at all. I just simply didn't understand that you don't think of data in that way. Um, so uh, I want to first off apologize for that. Second off, I want to say that this video is going to be all about power pivots. It's a little video I wanted to make because I know a lot of people rely on Excel and they rely on pivot tables. And the problem is that data is ever changing in oh so many ways. And Power BI is really like where you should be, focusing your attention on if you're going to be working with dynamic data sets, or if you want like a lot more visual aspects of the data and less really reporting aspects. Then Power BI is going to be like your go-to. Um, but for those who want to keep things in Excel and be able to use some of the functionality that you get in Power BI and keep everything that you know and love in Excel, I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to show you how to create a basic report that you would maybe struggle with, or maybe not struggle with, but struggle with dynamically uh, in Excel just using straight pivot tables. And that's why we have Power Pivot. Now, this doesn't come with every Office, Microsoft Excel. It comes with Office 365 subscriptions, and I think Office Enterprise, if I remember correctly. Um, if you don't have an Office 365 subscription, it's pretty cheap. I'd recommend getting one. Uh, you get the latest version of Office all the time, and Office has really been taken off, especially some of their other products like Power BI. And Power BI is free, but anyways. Um, so let's get started. So here's a report that I made strictly out of uh, little bit of products data, a little bit of sales data, and we're able to get this kind of reports, and we're able to even go further than that. We're able to add in like a slicer, for example, for product names, and we're able to check out things that doesn't really give you any kind of detail. Let's fix this and do, like, for example, date, and remove date from here and remove product name, and there you go. So now you have, like, your different um, products, and you can see how they did over a given months, and you can add years in there if you had different years, but I don't have different years in my data right now. But you get the picture. I can add a slicer. You can do it the opposite way. Add years in here in the slicer and have your products over here, or have months in the slicer and have your products over here. So there's a lot of different things you could in the slicer. You can also do multi-choose, so you can look at different ways of looking at that. So um, yeah. So how did I do that? How did I get it to where I can get product name, for example, to be reflective of product sales? How do I have two options over here instead of just one? Uh, and we're going to answer all those questions right now. And that's in Power Pivot. That's what it is. So for those who don't know what Power Pivot is, Power Pivot simple way, Power Pivot kind of creates your Excel as a database, a miniature, small database. Allows you to do relationships and allows you to do computed columns or computed fields, also known as measures, KPIs, little things like that. And it's really powerful, generally speaking, especially for those who are dealing with Excel every day. So let's get it going on. Let me go ahead and copy some data out into a new workbook, and we'll do everything from scratch here. So we're going to copy out our products. We're going to copy out our sales table. And again, this is all static data. So if you were dealing with dynamic data, Power BI is probably going to be what you want to be using. But yeah, so we're going to start from here. So first thing is, a lot of people will just leave the data like this. And when they leave the data like this, they let me make sure I don't have any kind of naming going on. No, okay, good. So they would just leave the data like this. They would just do insert pivot table and use existing worksheet, and then they would click wherever they want to go, and they would say, okay, let's do that, right? And then they would come in here and go, okay, I want by product name. Oh, wait, I don't have product name. That's in my products table. I only have product number. So they would go, okay, fine. Whatever, I'll undo that. I will insert a column, and I'll do a VLOOKUP on this, and then they'll continue that cycle of madness, which basically you constantly having to relate this to this, because again, I will have cost rate next. I'm going to want to pull over into my report. I'm going to need the tax for the for the multiplication, for the and all that fun stuff. So instead, what we can do is we can create these as tables, create a relationship between them, and then use Power Pivot, or use the data model of Power Pivot to then create our pivot table that we can use and then create measures or computed fields to better display data that we're trying to accomplish. Okay, so with all that being said, let's go ahead and try it out. Okay, so we're going to go ahead, we're going to come into products here, and we're going to highlight our stuff, and we're going to say I want to go to insert, and I want to insert a table. Where is my data for my table? It is in this location that I highlighted, and my table has headers. Yes. So this is basically going to take this data that we just got done doing and turn it into a table. I know it's a little kind of counterintuitive. Maybe it should say make table. I don't know. But so you have this as a table. Now, you're going to want to name your table. So in this case, we'll call this products. And if you don't see that up there, that means that you're not on the design tab while you're somewhere in the table. So make sure you click somewhere in the table, then click on design. And then Now I always check off the filter button just because I like to see it as regular data. If you want to leave the filter button on there, whatever you want to do. So in sales, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to highlight it. We're going to say insert table, and we're going to call this table sales. Now, these are tables now. They're what we, and later on we can reference them and make relationships with them and all that fun stuff. We can import slicers on them now, and we can analyze them. Uh, but they're not still yet related, and they don't have a model. So what we're going to do is we're going to model it so we can put those relationships on them. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on the Power Pivot tab up here, and we're going to say I want to add this data to my model. Now, if I don't know what my model has yet, maybe Excel automatically added it, which they probably will in the future. We can check our Manage Data Model up here to see if we have anything in our model, which we don't. And we'll go ahead and add this data to the model. You'll see that automatically opens up the data modeler manager, and you can see that we have a new table called sales, our headers, and our records. Okay, so I'm going to close that. I'm going to go over to products. I'm going to do the same exact thing, highlight that out, and click on Power Pivot, and hit add data to data model. Oh, I must have at one point in time did this in this worksheet. Oh well. Okay. So now we have this. Now the problem is that you need to create a relationship of the product number of products to the product number of the sales, so we can link these two things together. So later on, I could pull the product name for this. I could pull the cost for that, etc. So the I've tried to use this manage relationships thing and do it. It's already here um, because of me previously doing it, but I've tried to use this before and it just doesn't really work that well. So I literally just come down here into this diagram view and it works great. I put them accordingly. I will do my from one to many. So I'll do product number to product number and boom, it's done. Now this also has all my other previous uh, previous uh, computed fields or measures in here, so I'll get rid of those so that it doesn't keep popping up on you, confusing you. Alright, so we'll do that. We got our date, product, quantity, rate, tax amount. Okay, and over here we got that as well. We'll close out. So now I want to create a report. Now, how am I going to create a report though? That's going to be the question, is how am I going to create this report? Oh, the reason why I got switched over to the other Excel sheet. Oopsie. Oh well. So I'm modifying that now. Oh well. It'll end up being the same in the end anyways. I just noticed up here I'm on the one that's saved. But let's make sure. Okay. Let's make sure about relationships. Yeah. Okay. Our relationships there. Look at our diagram. Okay. Yeah. Whatever. I'll recreate them. All right. So we have this thing here, and so how do we create a table? We don't do insert pivot table like you would normally do, because we got a problem. I mean, you got this, but you have an issue with the fact that they're not linked, right? So if I do insert pivot table, let's try it. Insert pivot table, existing worksheet. Let's put it right over here. And you'll see that I have no option for my products. Now I could go over here and it lets you a cheat, and you have more tables, and it says, do you want to create a new pivot table? Use multiple tables analysis, and a new pivot table to be created using the data model. But we don't want to do that. We're smarter than that. So we're going to do it a different way. We're going to do it the right way. So we're going to highlight that, get rid of it, and we're going to click over here, click where we want our table, and then click on Insert Pivot Table one more time. But in this case, instead of using a table or range, we're going to use the workbook's data model, the one that we already created. And then we're going to say, I want to go to the existing worksheet, and I want to put it right there. And you're going to notice that now we have access to our data model. And I can literally just drag in product name, even though it's not part of that one over here, because we have these two things linked by the product number, and so it knows that it's going to create that Cartesian join in the back end. If you're not used to SQL and you're not used to understanding what a Cartesian join is, um, it's a join of data in the data analysis world, and it basically kind of pivots the data up together and creates a full set of data that it can be utilized for analysis. But anyways, so we have our product name, and let's say we want to do our sales amount. So we'll drag that in there. We'll rename this to sales amount. Now it's great. We have our sales amount. Probably want to format this into currency, make it look nice. Okay. So now we want to get our quantity. That's easy enough. Just come over here into the sales, drag our quantity into values, and we have our sum of our quantity. We'll rename it just to quantity to make it look nice. And there you go. Now we need cost amount, but the cost amount is not in our sales deal. And if I do the cost amount or the cost rate here, you're going to notice that it's going to do a sum of the cost rate, which is 3 cents, which is inaccurate. If you look up our coffee cup, it's 3 cents, but per item. And we notice here that we have 16 items that were sold. So we got a problem. We need that to actually be, a calculated field of the cost amount against the amount of quantity. Now we can come in here and say, uh, the counts or the average, or try to do something in here to summarize by values, but we have a better way to do this. We have measures. So we're going to add a measure. We're going to call it cost amount. And we're going to say, I want to take the sum of sales quantity, and I want to multiply that by the sum of the, or I want to multiply that by the products, sum of cost rate. Come on. Thank you. And you're going to notice that now, if I drag this over, we're going to have 48 cents. Now, we'll edit that one more time. And we'll make it a currency and 2 decimal places. So you'll notice that now I have actual cost amount. And we can rename it right here and make it a little more pretty. And you'll see that I actually have the cost amount now of how much it costed me. And so if we go back into that, I know I did that a little fast. Why did I do a sum of this? The reason why I had to do a sum of this is because we currently have the quantity in an aggregate of sum right here. So I have to match my, anytime I use a field that's already used in the aggregation, I have to match it with how I'm using it in my DAX. Okay. So data analysis expression, if you're not familiar with the term. So that's what we're writing here. We're writing DAX. It looks like exactly like Excel formulas, but yeah. So what do I do? How do I do that? And I do that by just simply writing sum around it. And then this one wasn't used in, and you can already see that because it's already aggregated over here and off a different table, it's going to force the aggregation here for me. I don't have a choice. Okay. And so if we're going to hit OK, and we'll get our amount right here. Now, if we want to get our, let's say we want to get our profit, maybe we want to get the difference between the two, right? Well, we would just go here, add measure, and again, you would normally just do something like this, equals to, sales minus cost. Boom, baby, profit, right? And that's great. And we can drag it down. That's cool. But the problem is that two things. One, there's a power pivot table, and that drag down won't work, as you saw. And two, is that if you get more data, more products, you have to keep dragging it down. You're going to forget to drag it down. So we want to make sure we add a measure, just like the cost amount, that will take effect no matter what we do. So we're going to come here, and in the measure name, we're going to say we want to add a cost amount or a measure of profit, profit margin. And we're going to say we want to take the sum of the amount, sales amount, and we want to minus the sum of sales, or actually, so we don't even need to do sum of sales because we already have we want to do sales cost amount because it's already in a sum, it's already in an aggregate, and there we go. We have our profit margin, we can toss it in there, and boom, we have our profit margin. And again, probably want to edit that, turn it into a currency, give it a couple decimal places. There you go. So now we have our difference in our profit margin. Okay. Now, what if we want our variance? Again, it's the same exact thing. We will just simply come back over here, add a measure, call it variance, come in here, and we'll do the sum of amount minus the sum cost divided by some amount. Yeah, and I screwed up. This is supposed to be not like that. This is supposed to be sales cost amount. Because that is already in a sum. Hold on. Oh, I forgot my. No, hold on. That. And I need it right here. Come on, stop it. Oh, it's because I had one for some reason. No, that's right. And then there, and then there, and then. Okay, hold on. There's that. I want to get the sum of the. Oh. Nope. That's going to be. It's missing sales. Sales amount. There you go. Minus sales. Come on. What else is missing? The sum of sales amount minus the sales cost amount. Oh, no, there's the ending right there. And the sum, and then I need to do that. Okay, there we go. Sorry, a little bit of parenthesis problems there. And see, we all make mistakes. Drag it in there. We got our variance. Oh, and again, we need to format it. So we'll go to number, change this to a percentage, give it a couple decimal places, and there we go. So we now have our variance or profit margin delta, which is amazing. And we have our profit margin, our sales amount, cost amount, quantity. And again, at the very end, we can add just for a little bit of fun stuff to be able to do things if Excel will stop freezing on me. Come on, Excel. There we go. We can insert under our data, we can insert a data slicer. Under analyze, insert a data slicer under product name. And there we go. We can analyze away. And now we have our nice little report that we did. And it's all linked up. And if we get any more sales data or any more products data, it will automatically import. Well, I hope that helped you out. And if you have any other questions, just let me know. All right. Thank you and have a wonderful day.